Hey guys, welcome to Trade Talk Episode 1. This week we will be discussing I, Vampire Volume 1, Tainted Love. You can get a look at the cover right here. Pretty nice. This volume covers issues 1 through 6 of the rebooted I, Vampire series in DC's New 52. First of all, going into this, you don't need to know anything about I, Vampire. It's a fresh take and a fresh start. Basics about the comic. It follows Andrew Bennett, a hero vampire who, of course, in typical vampire story fashion, doesn't feed on humans and often kills other vampires that do. He's your very cliche vampire hero, and he is facing off against his ex-lover, Mary, Queen of Blood, who is planning on leading a vampire revolt to basically kill off the humans and take their rightful place as rulers of this world. First things first, a few things I liked about this comic. As I already said, the art is fantastic. It's really dark, great use of shadows, visceral blood and gore, just really good. Second of all, I love that this comic acknowledges the DC universe in a great way. Like, it could have very easily been a cop-out where they were just like, this is in the DC universe, but we don't actually acknowledge any other DC characters, and it kind of acts in its own little bubble over here. But no, right at the start, they're already talking about other parts of the DC universe. When Mary talks about her coming revolution, Andrew's quick to point out how she's going to deal with Superman, Wonder Woman, all these other heroes that would be there to stop, these vampires hurting humans, which is something we all think of when we read these comics. Like, really, where's Superman in this? He could just shut this down. So it's great that they actually acknowledge that. They also have 2 guest appearances of other characters from the DC universe. I won't spoil who they are, but when they do show up, it's fantastic. And if you are interested in them, I would not read the back of this volume because they kind of spoil the guest appearances, and honestly, it's a little better if it's a surprise, in my opinion. Now, the other thing I really liked about this comic, the narrative style is really interesting. Every different comic within the volume has a different narrative style with a different character narrating or a creative narrative fashion that's really interesting, and it mixes flashing back and showing backstory as well as progressing forward really nicely, and I liked it a lot. Other than that, there's also a nice couple of bits of humor. For a mostly dark, kind of violent comic that doesn't focus on humor as much, the few bits of humor that are in there really shine because of their rarity and their just spot-on timing. That's a good word for it. Other thing I liked, this comic does end, or the volume does end in a cliffhanger, but it's not an obnoxious kind of, you don't know anything about how it resolved, you have to buy the next one immediately cliffhanger. More of just kind of pulling you in, making you want to buy the next volume without needing it immediately. You can put this down, feel comfortable going and reading something else and coming back to the next volume later. Another thing to mention, this comic will only have a 19-issue run because DC recently announced that they are canceling it after the 19th issue, which is a shame because a lot of people have viewed great things about it. I guess just not enough people are buying it or something. But the creator has said he liked the way it wrapped up in the 19 issues, and it does give you a good, concise story because you only have to worry about 19 issues so they can tell their story and be done with it without running on too long. And actually, that means the story will fall into only 3 volumes that you have to pick up. 1, 2, and 3 will cover all 19 issues, as well as a little overlap with some other comics that this story has kind of flown over into. And so that way you can get your story in just a nice 3 volumes. More specifically, details about the comic. Like I said, I love the art, I love the story, I really enjoy it. If you like vampires and kind of bloody, violence, dark storytelling, this is really for you. If you're not a vampire fan of those type of stories, I might avoid this because honestly, it is a very typical vampires type story. It's well done, but if you're not into that type of thing, it may not be for you. With that being said, my one complaint about this comic is actually that it is kind of cliche vampire stuff. The love interest thing, which doesn't bother me as much, but the one big thing is Andrew Bennett being what I call a vegetarian vampire, where he eats animals, doesn't eat humans, is kind of cliche for a vampire hero. I mean, it's been done quite a lot. I think it takes much more guts to take a vampire and make him a hero while still having him drink human blood. It's a gutsier move, and it shows a much better writing skill. In J.F. Lewis's Void City novels, he does just this, where your main hero is definitely the hero, but he doesn't mind drinking some human blood, and so you have to kind of, get used to that and accept him as a hero with his faults, as opposed to this, which Andrew Bennett comes off a little too shiny nice of a vampire. But other than that, it's a really great story. It's really interesting, flows really nicely. The art's fantastic. I say it's definitely worth a buy, especially if you're into the vampire, violent, bloody, dark comic type of thing like I am.